Matthew chapter 20, starting at verse 17. And as Jesus was about to go up to Jerusalem, he took the 12 disciples aside by themselves, and on the way he said to them, "Look, we're going to Jerusalem. And the Son of Man will be delivered to the chief priests and scribes, and they will condemn him to death. Will deliver him to the Gentiles to mock and scourge and crucify him. And on the third day he will be raised up." Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee came to him with her sons, bowing down and making a request of him. He said to her, "What do you wish?" She said to him, "Command that in your kingdom these two sons of mine may sit, one on your right and one on your left." But Jesus answered and said, "You do not know what you are asking for. Are you able to drink the cup that I'm able to drink?" They said to him, "We are able." He said to them, "My cup you shall drink, but to sit on my right and on my left, this is not mine to give, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father." And hearing this, the 10 became indignant with the two brothers. But Jesus called them to himself and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great men exercise authority over them. It's not so among you, but whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant. And whoever wishes to be first among you shall be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life for many." Amen. Amen. All right. So I want to talk about grasping after greatness in the kingdom. Grasping after greatness in the kingdom. And as we think about this, we are confronted with how Matthew sets this up. So verses 17 to 19 is a very interesting setup to how Matthew is going to confront this concept of greatness. Before we even get into it, though, this is not a new lesson for us. We've heard on many occasions, and probably just even intuitively, right? Like to be, when it comes to Christianity, when it comes to how God is and how Jesus is and how the kingdom of God is, if you want to be great in the kingdom, you have to serve. Like that, being a servant, turning the other cheek and, sacrificing and helping others and being other-centered. Like we already kind of know that's what Christianity is about. And so perhaps as a question, as a start-up question, we hear Jesus say things like, if you want to be great in the kingdom, serve. Mm-hmm. But that's not where people there's this constant struggle. And we see this even with the disciples, right? Like they've been with him at this time, probably maybe 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years, something like that. He's near the end of his ministry. So maybe 3 years and some change. And they're on a journey from Galilee to Jerusalem. And this is not the first time he's talked about servitude. This isn't the first time they've seen him and about servant. And so even the disciples are kind of a illustration of how difficult it is sometimes for even Christians to really grab this concept that greatness in the kingdom is actually about servitude. And my question is, why is that such a struggle, you think? Is it a struggle for the disciples? I think it's a struggle for a lot of us. Why do you think that is? Why do y'all think that is? Why do y'all think there's such a struggle for people?
I think it's because everyone who is held up in the world, it's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Everyone who's held up as great in the world is usually served.
Yes.
You know, like the kings have their servants.
Yeah.
People who will make great things and make great moves in battles, big warriors, you know, and they even have their armor bearers or their servants.
Right.
And so to consider that, you know, you would be looked at as great if you were a servant is just countercultural.
Yeah, those are very two good words: counterintuitive, countercultural. Because everything around us, they say that's not what greatness is. That is not what greatness is. Greatness is people. In fact, I used to say something. I got it from probably some book or commentary or something like that, and I used to kind of repeat it. And I began to think about it. I've thought about it, and I don't no longer say this anymore in regards to this passage, but I would read this passage and probably in light of something that I have read or whatever, and I would repeat, Jesus talks about, if you want to be great in the kingdom, be a servant. And then I would say something like, and you can tell how much of a servant you are by the way you respond when people treat you as a servant. And I got that it sounded profound to me. It was, I got it from something, but the fact of the matter is that actually goes against the type of logic of this passage, because when we say that, you can tell how much a servant you are by whether somebody treats you like a servant. Well, here's the thing. That concept of treating a person like a servant implies that you're treating them less than, which actually goes contrary to the logic of this passage, because the logic of this passage is that servants are not people to be treated as less than, but they are people who to be treated as valuable, as the great, right? And so that actually goes against the logic of this passage, and it actually reveals how we think about servants. So in some ways it becomes almost as I thought about this, I said, no, that's not right, because for me to use that as an application, because it becomes justification for treating people as less than, and then I'm supposed to, the person who's on the object of being treated less than, I'm supposed to appropriate this verse in my mind as justification for the abuse that I'm getting.
Right.
Right. But if we really understood the logic of this says, listen, that serving is supposed to get supreme, supposed to be the first camera. Like that's supposed to get the headlines. But in our culture, no, servants, servers are those people who lift it up. These are not the great people. People look down on custodians and think they're better than waiters and waitresses and stuff like that. And so it's counterintuitive. And it's so that's not only true for us, it was obviously true for the disciples. They're still vying for position. And so with that in mind, verses 17 and 19 sets up the thing a very important way. And watch this. So Jesus takes his disciples aside and says to them, look, y'all see Jerusalem? Okay, listen, we're headed that way, but I need y'all to understand that we're probably not going to, that my going to Jerusalem is not the same as everybody else is going. the Gospel of John tells us, and actually all the synoptics tell us, that it'll be the week of Passover that they'll mention, that they'll enter into Jerusalem, right? So that means that you'll have pilgrims from all over the world who'll be coming to Jerusalem. They'll be coming because it's a holy festival. They'll be coming to give sacrifices and all these different things. And Jesus says, we're going to Jerusalem, but I want you to understand, I'm not going in this for the same reason that everybody else is going. What's going to happen is that I'm actually going to be mocked while I'm there. I will be scourged and killed. And then on the third day rise again, but this will be my fate. And it's interesting that what the next scene, right? So we don't get any conversation, any feedback, any even response from the disciples on this matter. And it's probably a couple of reasons. I mean, remember, what was the last time? Matthew 16, when Jesus said this, Peter took him aside, right? It says he took them aside and said this. Well, in Matthew 16, Peter took him aside and says, listen, don't say stuff like that. That don't even sound right. You know, you gonna die and you gonna be killed. Don't even say no. And when he said it, last time he said it, Jesus called him Satan. Right? So you get this big old rebuke. You know, so shoot, that could be a reason. And then not only that, they're probably thinking Jesus is probably over exaggerating. Ain't nobody gonna kill you. What you talking about, right? You talking about you gonna be handed over, you gonna be mocked. And probably why would they think that? Because in chapter 19, why would they think he was exaggerating? In chapter 19, he just spoke about his kingdom and the 12 thrones and all that kind of stuff that, you know, that folks are gonna sit on. So, and they're thinking politically, right? We just had, what's that, verse 9, chapter 19, I don't know, I missed it, but yeah. But we looked at that a couple of weeks ago, chapter 19. When you talk about, you'll sit on the 12th, and you'll sit on the thrones and judge Israel and all that kind of stuff, right? And so they're like, okay, yeah, like he's starting to talk. He started to talk that good talk now. Talk, yeah, we're gonna be judging and sitting on thrones and and all this kind of good stuff. So when he says that, when he's going up to, we're going up to Jerusalem and people are gonna be mocking me and they're going to kill me. In light of Peter being rebuked last time in chapter 16, and probably all the conversation about the kingdom coming and sitting on thrones and all that kind of stuff, they probably think he's just exaggerating. And man, ain't nobody gonna kill you, right? And nevertheless, whatever's going on, they don't say anything. There's no record of that. They resolve not to speak, most likely, on the issue. Nevertheless, we see two scenes juxtaposed or set alongside one another, and this is important for what Matthew is saying. So right after Jesus says, hey, I'm going to Jerusalem, I'm going to die, the very next, it's like the camera pans, and here comes the mother of James and John saying, listen, I got a request. And he says, well, what is it? I need you, that these two boys of mine, I need you, these two sons of mine, I need you to give your word, command, or speak, so that one will sit on the left and one sit on the right. And it's in this setting aside of these two scenes, this juxtaposition of these two scenes, that you get the idea that Matthew is blowing the whistle. Matthew is calling, if to use a basketball imagery, this is a flagrant foul. Like, you can't get any more disrespectful than that, right? Jesus just told you he's about to die, and the first thing to come to your mind is, well, all this about this kingdom talk and stuff like that. You don't mind if I get like, you save me a seat, like you just reserve that only for me. Like, I'm on the left, you're on the right, so they can rule. Like, you don't get any more disrespectful than that. This is Matthew's calling the flagrant foul. And it begins to show just how much this issue of wanting to be great is. Let me just pause and stop here and say, so they've been with Jesus all this time, and they still have this concept that being with Jesus is about affording me greatness in this world. It's about my best life now. It's about becoming a somebody in the world's, according to the world's standards, using Jesus as my platform. And if that's not relevant to how so many people still think of Christianity, I don't know what is. For a lot of people, whether it is perpetuated by prosperity, quote unquote, prosperity gospel, or televangelists, or just self-help type of theology that has pervaded Christianity, for so many people, to be a Christian is all about affording status, greatness, success in this world, according to the world standards. It is a means to an end.
Right.
And that's problematic. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, Jesus is a celebrity. Obviously, there are some things, like, people love him, and this is part of what's going on here. He's not just traveling with the disciples to Jerusalem. There's a lot of people traveling with him. In fact, we'll find out later on why. This is why James and John's mother is able to just come to him, because later on in chapter 27, they'll find out that they said that there were many women that traveled with Jesus from Galilee to Jerusalem ministering to him. Right. So there's a whole bunch of people in the crowd. And Jesus is trying to have a private conversation. It's kind of like, hey, y'all come over here, come up here a little bit and have a private conversation. And the mother disrupts that. But again, before we even get into all the details, that application is important. That this is the disciples, and probably many others, are illustrations of those who get connected with Jesus for success and greatness according to the world standards. Now, that doesn't mean that they have that they got it all wrong. No. There's I mean, obviously they're going to be doing some preaching. They understand who he is as an identity, and Jesus. Peter says, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God," right? And so this doesn't mean they have everything wrong, but this is a major, for the lack of better word, stronghold, so to speak. Like, this is a very problematic way of thinking that it just seems to be very difficult to get out their head. And as we start to think about application, for today, so many people still think of Christianity that way, right? Like, that's why people, pray for me, Pastor. They not even a member of the church, right? They want the blessings they want, and what they mean by that, they usually see God as the source that is able to kind of make their life better, which is fine and true, right? That's an absolute true statement. He is. But the thing is, that's kind of all what we want him for.
Right.
Right.
So people don't have a sense of commitment to God, service to people, doing his will, being used in his service. It's all about, hey, man, can you have your pastor pray for me? I got a job interview today.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Can you, I need a, I showed up, I need a blessing today. And so that's the concept. And also additionally, connected to that is also using God as a platform for my greatness.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it is politicians, right? Whether it is, I remember, I never forget, I remember this is around the same time when I was writing my book. So this is about 5, 6 years ago. And I remember being in this group, this online Facebook group where Pastor Armin and I was kind of just having these conversations and debates with these guys and girls about these various different religions, and they all trying to attack Christianity. And of course, obviously, we made a book out of it. We started cataloging our conversations and said, well, let's turn this into a book. But I remember one of the guys who's atheist, and I was so offended by this. And I told him this, but I remember him, just, man, talking a year, going in on the church, and y'all are foolish, y'all brainwashed, you are dumb, et cetera, et cetera. And then he wanted to start some type of business where, I don't even remember I was so offended by it, but it was something along the lines of like contracting churches out for like rental halls or something he wanted, something kind of thing. And so he wanted to know, like, so he reached out to me, says, hey, you know what, man, I know we have our differences, and I know we disagree on a lot of stuff on religion and stuff like that. But one thing that I think we can both agree on is that we are both about building up the community and building up the Black community. And I got this business idea, so he wanted to kind of start off being we be equal owners to this business idea where we kind of start contracting church buildings out for different type of things, like social events and stuff like that. And I said to him, man, you're not serious, are you? He said, no, I'm very serious. I'm very serious. I said, man, listen, you spent the last year denigrating my God, denigrating my beliefs, all this kind of stuff. And yes, I am very much concerned about the community. And I've been doing stuff in the community, some stuff I've been telling you. But you want me now to kind of go be your business partner. You don't have a building, you don't have resources, so you want to use the church for that.
Right.
And you think, and I says, what's offensive to me is that out of all the stuff you heard me say, you actually thought that I would go for that. I said, bro, don't ever come to me with some stuff like this no more.
Right.
And I'm gonna tell you, I didn't say stuff, y'all. I said, don't ever come with me no stuff like this before, no more. And it's like, man, how arrogant can you be? Like and that's the concept where the church and the things of God is, it's something that can be used for my greatness. And listen, that ain't just for external. That temptation can be something for people inside the church too.
Yeah.
Where ministry, right? That's why sometimes we can have some of these challenges where people are like we have like territorial over ministry positions and territorial over certain stuff. Why? Because for some people, the church, the things of God is an opportunity for them to be somebody. They're nobody, quote unquote. I'm just saying based off how they feel, right? We know everybody's made in the image of God. They're valuable to people are valuable all people are valuable to God, but the way you feel like a nobody in your own home. So then you come to the church and keep up hell because you want to be a somebody.
Right.
Right. Or there's I've seen this a lot when I was in youth ministry. You got people who done messed up their lives. You just made a mess of your life. And now, after you done got out of jail and got out of this, all that kind of stuff. Now you feel like you got something to say to the youth. Now you ain't got nothing to say to youth. You need to come and go sit down and study and learn.
Right.
I've seen it time after time. The first thing you come to the church, and as soon as you join the church, you feel like you ought to be in some type of a leadership, and you need to tell the youth, and you got a testimony. Well, we all got testimonies. Go sit your butt down somewhere.
Right.
Right. So and so it's this thing where it's a similar thing where we want to use the church, we want to use the things of God as a launching pad for our greatness. And he says, you know what? It's not that wanting to be great is a problem. It's what your concept of greatness is. So it's true. It's because the other side is this too. On the other side, I've seen people who've messed their life up, get out of jail, whatever, and they just want to serve any way they can. They are so grateful to God that he's given them another chance. They're so grateful to God that he's enlisted them in service. They really don't have a problem even doing the menial things, the things, the low things, because they really see it as a grace gift to be able to serve God and his people. I've seen that. I've seen the other side of that too. We have too. And so the problem is not so much greatness. It's the problem of wanting to be great. The problem is, what is your concept of greatness? In this, watch this. And so there's an exegetical thing, though, I want to look at real quickly. There's kind of an exegetical issue on the table. When Matthew tells a story, he says it's the mother of James and John. He seems to kind of put the issue that the mother of James and John, at least that's how it's interpreted, kind of are the one that kind of brought this issue up. But when Mark tells a story, he doesn't tell anything about James and John. He doesn't say anything about the mother. When Mark tells a story, it's just James and John that comes asking these questions. But in Matthew, it's the mother. Do you have any ideas of how to resolve this? There are a couple of options. Option one, and we can just throw that out the window, but the critics say, well, there's a contradiction. Simple as that. We can throw that out the window. Option two is probably say something along the lines that the mother was there, and she obviously was. Matthew wouldn't have said she was if she wasn't there. So the mother was there. She did say something, but they said it too, and they're just focusing on each author just focusing on different speakers who said the same thing. That's another option. Another option is probably really even evident even in Matthew's gospel too. Watch this. Matthew, what verse is that? So
22.
22. But when I'm sorry. I'm in chapter 19. That's why I can't find it. Thank you. Matthew 22. So, yes, in 22. So the question is asked, can they sit on your left or right? But Jesus answered and says, you do not know what you are asking. Here's a good exegetical question. Who is the you? Pronouns, right? We identify pronouns. Who is the you? Who's the you? But Jesus answered and said, you do not know what you are asking. Who is the you? Who is the you point to?
The mother?
James and John. John.
The mother.
So
his
what?
relatives?
I say James.
Was his relatives?
Okay, so we got a couple options. We got James and John. I think I heard somebody say.
I
or-
did.
Okay, Sister Young, the mother. So I think somebody else said the relatives. Well, watch this.
I think it's James and John.
James and
Yeah.
John.
Okay. So listen, it would be natural to think that it is the mother, since she's the one that just finished speaking.
Right.
But here's the thing: the you there is plural.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes.
Now you wouldn't know that by looking at it in English, because we don't have a plural you unless you say y'all, right? So the you is used for singular and for plural in English.
Yeah.
But if you continue to read verse 22, then that also gives you another suggestion that he's talking to
James and
most plural people, most likely James and John. So he says, but you do not know what you are asking. And then he says, are you able to drink the cup that I'm able to drink? And they said, we are able.
Right. There you
So
go.
so watch this. The mother, it is a good educated guess, because verse 21, you would think it's the mother, but because the you is plural there. So guess this is what happens. The mother comes and asks, and Jesus turns to James and John and say, y'all don't know what y'all asking.
Right.
Right.
Which means what?
He know that they put her mama up to it.
They put the mama up to it. And for whatever the case is, whether it is they put their mama up to it,
Right.
she saw, or she just knew what they wanted, and just kind of realized they were lollygagging around, and I'm just gonna go ahead and ask. Whatever the case is, that Jesus responds, says that she was asking on behalf of them.
Right.
Whether they put them up to it or she intuitively kind of just knew her boy or whatever, and just kind of like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and ask. But the idea is Jesus knows that the issue actually starts with them and not with the mother.
Okay.
Right.
So he turns to him. He says, y'all don't know what y'all are asking. Matthew says she came to ask, but he says Jesus turned to him. I know this is about y'all. I know that either y'all been talking about this and your mother overheard, and she just does what a mother does for her sons, or you actually went to your mother and try to get her to. You must have thought that somebody, if she asks, she ain't gonna say nothing to me.
Right.
He gonna say no to me. And you know what? This is the at the cross. Remember, he's gonna, there's probably some kinship there. Or John, because remember he's gonna talk about. I'll make an argument for later on, but he'll say, John says, John, behold your mother, mother, hold your John, and mother, hold your son, where he's talked about his mother, and then it talks about there was these other Marys that were there. But whatever the case, even if it's not, he sees that the source of this is really with them.
Okay.
This is them, and that's why. And so, how do we solve that tension between Mark? Well, Mark, who's probably the first person to write, says, listen, he just gets at the source. It's James and John. It probably did happen the way that Matthew. It did happen the way that Matthew presented, that the mother was involved. But even in Matthew's gospel, Jesus knows that James and John are the culprit.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's just an exegetical issue. I find myself have to deal with these kind of things more and more, because if I don't deal with them, particularly for younger generations, then somebody else comes up and give a unbiblical and ungodly answer to this, and then people stop having confidence in the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but on the other end, then too, then this also reveals something, just how far ambition can go if we don't get it checked. See, watch this. It wasn't just good enough for James and John to have this ambition. Their ambition got other people, got their mother involved, whether directly or indirectly.
Right.
And that's the thing too, is that there's usually, now Jesus just kind of, as a wise teacher who understands the heart of things, he just kind of, he just go past the mama and he says, okay, y'all don't even know what y'all asking. And you just kind of see the mother like, oops, let me kind of like, all right, let me go and get them out the way,
Right.
But that's the thing, is that our ambition, if it is according to the world's standards, you gotta be careful about that type of ambition that for greatness, if we have greatness as according to the world standards, because it can create casualties. It can recruit other people in those ambitions. And you have people like Mother Zebedee, Mrs. Zebedee, getting into conversations, saying stuff, doing stuff that because they trying to, protect you or help you out. And so we have to be careful about that. Now, let me just say this. The other side of this is this. It's interesting that Jesus doesn't say, don't try to be great. He just says, change your perspective about what greatness is.
Right.
And so that's where the analogy, he says, before I get there, verse 24, so Jesus says, first of all, y'all don't even know what y'all asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I'm able to drink? And they said, yeah, we are able. Yeah, for sure. Jesus said to him, well, you know what? My cup you shall drink. Cup being a symbol, a form of metonymy for suffering. So there's some talk of, like we do see in the Old Testament, like God speaking of like a cup of wrath, pouring out a cup of wrath. There's some talk about in some cultural context where that could be a form of punishment, like capital punishment, that you can, like, you have to drink poison or something like that. But the idea is just, it's a cup of suffering. And Jesus says, you shall drink. But to sit on my right, on my left is not mine to give. But for those who have been prepared. Before I even get on that even more, let me deal with one more thing. There's something interesting about the mother's perspective. She says, speak so that, speak with the result that these two sons of mine sit on the right and the left. It's interesting because there's only one other person in Matthew who uses that language, which is Satan. Satan is the only other person in Matthew that uses the language. In Matthew chapter 4, verse 3, he tells Jesus, speak so that, same word, same two words, speak so that this stone becomes bread. Only two other person. Now, there's a couple of things probably that Matthew is probably trying to communicate. And one is this: in both cases, as we understand the similarities and the differences, the similarities is that there is an assumption that Jesus has the highest authority. Right. Satan has this assumption, and the mother. It says something about how they are perceiving Jesus' authority. First to command the elements, and then to command or apportion seats in the kingdom. And this creates another dialogue of questions and answers. And so Jesus then asked a question. First, he says, y'all don't even know what y'all asking. Are you able to drink of the same cup that I drink? And James and John says, yeah, we are. In this dialogue, he reveals some things. First, he does say, James, he does say, you know what, you will suffer. You will drink of my cup. But you have to kind of you have to kind of know the larger context. They are not going to suffer in exact same way. They're not going to drink. They're not going to drink the cup in the same way that Jesus is going to drink.
Right.
In many ways, you can say, you're always going to say theologically, once he drink the cup, ain't nothing else to drink.
Right.
He's going to drink it all.
Right.
But he is trying to communicate to them using the language that he's already introduced that they will suffer.
Yeah.
Okay.
They will suffer. But then, so the other question, the other part is he addresses the privilege of sitting. It reveals two things as we start to think about what does this teach us about humanity. One of the things it teaches is that we have a proclivity to want privileges without understanding the process that is required to get privilege. Jesus is basically saying sitting in the place of privilege is connected to two things. Number one, suffering with him, and two, his Father's selection. And it's probably both here, not one or the other. It's going to be that the place of privilege is connected to those who can suffer with him. He says, "Now I'm gonna give you this. You are going to suffer with me, but the Father's selection, that's out of my hand."
Right.
And it's already been established. He didn't say when it's been established. Could have been at the beginning of his ministry. Could have been whatever. But it's already been established. And it doesn't. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's only one. It's only two people either.
Right.
So the other thing is this, though. Jesus will have the highest seat in the kingdom because of his suffering on Calvary.
Right.
He will have the highest seat in the kingdom.
Right.
Philippians says this: at the name of Jesus, every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess.
Right.
Here's the thing, though. But in saying what he's about to say, he's going to help, and he's going to address this perspective that I mentioned earlier, that there's this proclivity to want privileges without understanding the process.
Right.
And he says, listen, part of greatness is two things he's going to introduce, or that he's going to really bring out. First is when he starts talking about suffering. He says, are you able to drink of my cup? And then he says, verse 25, but Jesus called them to himself and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great man exercise authority over them. And it's not that it's a problem on having authority, because Jesus will say he has authority. So Jesus is not saying that it's something wrong with authority and power, but in their case, he says when the Gentiles, they use power in a very abusive way, but not so among you. There's nothing wrong with having a place of position. There's nothing wrong with having power, but power in the kingdom is for the sake of servitude. So it is nothing wrong with want to be great. There's nothing wrong to want to be, to have a position, to have all these different things, but integral to your concept of that should be the idea of servitude. Nothing wrong want to be a president of the United States. Hopefully, though, that you're doing that because you want to make things better. You want to serve people, that you want to kind of create a better something.
Yeah.
That's part of what made President Obama so marketable, because it was not just the fact, I mean, in some cases, he wasn't saying things that other politicians have not said before him.
Right.
The difference was there was something about him that made you believe that he really wanted this. Like, yes, he believed this thing, right? And so there's an element of the servitude, so suffering and servitude, and in both based off how we deal with those two things, that actually determines our status in the kingdom.
Yeah.
Suffering and servitude, but two things that people want to go as far away from as possible. Two things that we want to make Christianity everything but. No, doesn't mean all servitude, all suffering. No, I mean Jesus is going to talk about this joy that I have, and you'll be, that you make, Paul talk about making the joy complete. He'll talk about how blessed it is for us to be citizens of the kingdom. There's all kind of privileges, and this is true. Like, right, here's stuff like access to God in prayer, the ability to confront the demonic, praying for people in Jesus's name, and people will get up, and like there is a lot of notoriety that comes with being a Christian. That's why people want to be it. That's why they want that part.
Yeah.
They know that. There's a lot of notoriety. Hey, I know you can get a prayer through. Can you pray for me?
Yeah.
There's a lot of privilege and notoriety. There is a blessing in knowing Jesus. There is a joy in knowing Jesus. We do get benefits. We have a God that fights for us.
Yeah. Amen.
When we go into battle, whether it is through sickness or in the courtroom or in social injustices, we have a God that fights for us. So yes, that is a privilege. That there is a benefit in knowing Jesus that other folks don't get.
Amen.
But the problem is that's what people want to park out there, and this is what, and we see how this ambition is shaping the disciples. He says, if you want to be first, learn the blessing of being last. If you want to be at the top, learn the blessing of embracing the bottom.
Yeah.
Paul says, whether I'm up or down, I've had abundance and I've had lack. But in all these, I've learned to be content. I learned, watch this, in many ways, he's talking about being content in his status, in his station. I learned to serve God in wherever place I am. I've learned to offer my fruits in wherever. That's the key to greatness.
Yeah.
That I could, so watch this, because then I can have abundance and I can have lack. I can have scarcity. And in either way, I'm still serving God. I'm still lifting up his name. I'm still praising him. I'm still about his kingdom. And so guess what? I can move. Listen, I'm more of a threat to the kingdom. Because there's no area, there's no station of life that I'm not sold out.
Yes, yes.
If my being sold out is conditioned or it is contingent upon how things are going, Jesus says this. He says, when the cares of the world, he says, and when suffering come, they will fall away.
Right.
How great in the kingdom you can't be that great, because he already knows just the littlest thing is gonna turn you away. Littlest thing, you ain't go. That's why I don't go to church no more. Right? You gon' if he knows that that's all it takes. But watch this. It is the servant, it is the believer that can be generous when they have a lot, as well as being generous when they don't have a lot of money.
Right.
That God says, "Woo, boy, that's a cold assassin right there." Right? Because he can use you in every context.
Yeah.
It's the ones that say, it's the Christian that says, when things are not going well, I'm still gonna bust the doors of the church down, and I'm gonna serve, and I'm gonna sing, and I'm gonna be available. Right? It's that he watch this. Then he knows he can take you to even greater places. He can use you in any type of context. Mm-hmm. And that ain't always, again, that don't mean like, okay, you're gonna get a raise. I mean, he could get you to do that. But the thing is this, it means that he can use you in so many different other contexts.
Right, right.
And that's what we ought to want to be. We ought to want to be the type of Christian that God can use me in any context.
Yes.
Amen.
He can use me in academic context. He can use me in a jail context. He can use me, you know, like it's all about trying to serve him and serving others. Watch this. And let me see if I can put it this way. There's some aspects of our life God can't even, well, he can use anything. He can use a mess. But my thing is this, is that there's some things in him that he can't get the full extent of your life from, because we haven't learned that he wants to be served in that context. Let me tell you what I mean. Some people's marriages, God would love to use certain people's marriages to serve other folks. Can't use me. It ain't much there to use though.
Right.
He would love to be able to use some people's parenting and say, you know what? I'm gonna use your parenting to be of service to some other parent.
Mm-hmm.
But shoot, if you got a and James tells us this, the book of James tells us this, suffering is the way how he equips us for servitude oftentimes. It is the times that when oftentimes in our suffering that God has brought the most out, and that's when now you've been brought out like pure gold, and you've been pruned and you've been shaped, and that's where he wants to use us oftentimes in the places where we've suffered faithfully.
Yes.
Now it's like, man, listen, wow, listen, I've seen this in my own life on so many different cases. I've done a lot of marital counseling, and sometimes I even done marital counseling from people who weren't even believers. But the thing is this, I found out something, is that my struggles and my struggle to want to get it right, God, you end up using that.
Okay.
So then it becomes a pretty good marital counselor. That wasn't born out of just in a vacuum. That born out of suffering for his glory and trying to get it right.
Yes, yes.
It was the suffering in that context that equipped me for this. And that's the thing, is whether it's in your job, it's oftentimes the stuff like that you've learned in. Those be the things, like, watch this, in your singleness. Oh, so my camera turned off. But in your singleness, you suffering in your singleness, you suffering in your loneliness, you suffering, whatever the case may be. It is in those things where you say, you know what? I'm gonna still learn how to trust God. I'm still gonna practice my faith. I'm still gonna be faithful. It's in those things that you grow and help others to grow.
Okay. All right.
So
Amen.
learning in my now your testimony. It becomes something that God can use. And so the thing is this, is instead of looking at suffering and servitude as something to shy away from, saying, God, anybody who suffers well and serves well are people that God wants to open doors for. And those open doors can look like different things, because he can take you to different places. Listen, that doesn't mean that once he opened the door that the suffering's gonna stop and all that kind of stuff. It's not a means to an end, so to speak. Like, okay, I did my suffering, I did my serving. All right, now I didn't graduate it. No. But the opportunities that you will have will come because you just want to serve. People, watch this. People oftentimes wrestle with, well, where's my gifts? Where's God? Where's my gifts? What has God gifted me with? One of the best ways to do that, the best way to find out where God wants you, is just to get in and just start serving it everywhere you can. I didn't get too many amens right there. That's what I said. Oh, what? I got it.
Amen.
But no, it's the best way. It's the best way. You come in, you say, you know what? maybe I try the usher board. Maybe I'll try, and then you start to find, wow, God has gifted me for certain areas. He's given me certain skills, but you don't know that until you just make up your mind. I want to serve.
Yes, that's right.
Listen, I've done, this almost any type of ministry you can name of. I started off doing children ministry and vacation Bible school and doing all kind of stuff. I done preached in convalescent homes, nursing homes, prisons. I mean, just whatever. It just says I'm just gonna serve.
Yeah, that's
what I start. I'm just gonna serve.
Yeah.
And then in that, not only does God start pruning me and making me a better servant in what I'm doing. So then guess what? So then I can preach in the academic setting at the university, or I can preach to a 5-year-old.
Okay. All right.
And both of them can be good sermons.
That's right.
That didn't come from just me, quote unquote, being naturally gifted and smart. That came from because I wanted to give God my fruits. He says, okay, let me help this boy out. Right. I see him trying to serve because he messes stuff up. And so what he starts doing, but because I see you trying to serve, I'm going to make you a better at what you're doing.
Yes. Yes.
So listen, I want to be a better preacher. Shoot, I should be able to preach to anybody. Because the more I preach and the more I serve God's people and anybody, then guess what? He'll make me, he can make me a better preacher than that. But if I can only preach to 1,000 people, well, you might get in front of that 1,000 people and flock.
Yeah.
So he actually prunes us and make us better servants. And so I'm gonna say this again, and he opens up doors.
Yeah.
Because watch this. I'd go back and read this when you get a chance, but there's a few times in Joseph's life. Joseph goes from the pit to Potiphar's house to prison to palace. But in all of those things, and go back and read the record, one thing that is consistent is he's serving.
Yeah.
He's trying to, on behalf of his dad, go serve his brothers. They're jealous of him. He goes into Potiphar's house, and it's because he's serving. And the text will say that. And he's serving, and in his serving, he's getting elevated.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't stop serving, but it's the service that actually starts to protect him.
And he's serving while he's suffering. Man.
He's serving come on, Rev. He's serving while he's suffering. And then he goes into the prison, and he can do these dreams, and he's serving while he's suffering. And it's in that guess what? So he never stops serving. So even when he becomes second in command, he never stops serving. But guess what happens? In each way, in each level, he never stops serving. But what happens is the suffering, God gives him a tool to deal with the suffering. Yeah. Now he suffers a while. He suffers 17 years. But then by the time he's getting to second in command, he don't have those type of sufferings anymore. Right. Because he's second in command now. Right. And so, but it's in that suffering and serving and embracing his suffering serving while he's suffering that God says, okay, yep. So first I want to see if I can use you before the pit. Then I gave you a pit and see if I can use you in Potiphar's house. Yep. I used you in Potiphar. You kept your integrity. You suffered well. You served well. Now it didn't look like a promotion. It looked like a demotion because he went from Potiphar's house to prison. And it don't look like that sometimes, right? And I'm almost finished, but I just want us to get out the mindset that, okay, if I serve, and I serve while I'm suffering, I'm graduating from suffering. Possibly not. I mean, you ain't gonna totally graduate from it. You might have a different type, but Joseph had to go from it. We always act like it's just a straight beeline. That's why I always tell folks. That's why we say from the pit. We say from pit to prison to palace. No, we skip over. No, it's from pit to Potiphar's house, which was pretty good until his wife lied on him.
Right.
He went from there then to prison. That was a worse situation.
Yeah.
But it was also a setup.
Yeah.
If he could serve and if he could embrace it, it was going to lead him to the palace. And so we just figure out, Lord, when I'm going through the most, that's not time for me to step away from the fellowship. Where you been? Pastor? No, I got somebody call you, check on you. Tell Pastor, I'm sorry. I just been going through. It's not time to step away when I'm suffering.
Yeah.
It's time to step up my serving, and watch how God will use that to open up doors for us. And so Jesus talked about that and says, if you want to be great, you want to know what greatness looks like, those who can embrace the way of suffering and the way of serving. And serving, and oftentimes is suffering.
Yes.
Serving, because you serving people, and people are, we something. We are ungrateful. We feel entitled.
Mean.
We are mean. We all kind of stuff. So sometimes suffering just comes just by serving. But when we embrace it, God prunes us. He uses it, and He's trying to get the disciples to get that. They will get it. They will get it. They will get it to the point that James and John going to be whooped, or Peter and John are going to be whooped out of the temple for preaching and serving. They're going to get it. They're going to get it. And we see how God begin to use them. And so, all right. Any questions, any comments?
Excellent.
Great message. Great lesson.
All right. Thank you. Okay, let's do our count.